everyone. Welcome back to Handy and Capable. Today, we're diving into a topic that could reshape education as we know it, the future of the U.S. Department of Education under DT's administration. Whether you're a student, a parent, an educator, or just someone who cares about how we prepare future generations, this episode is for you. DT has made it clear that dismantling the Department of Education is top priority. But what does that actually mean for students, teachers, and families? Is it even possible? What are the consequences? Let's get into it. DT believes the federal government has too much control over education, and his solution is to completely shut down the Department of Education. Here's what the plan includes: dissolving the Department of Education. He argues states and local governments should have full control over education without federal oversight. Eliminating DEI programs. Funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs would be cut as he sees them as unnecessary. Expanding on school choice. He supports policies that give parents more control over their child's education, whether it be through public, private, or religious schools. Introducing patriotic education. His plan focuses on reshaping how history and social issues are taught in schools, shifting toward a more nationalistic perspective. Programs like student loans and disability education services could be transferred to other federal agencies or shifted entirely to state governments. Sounds like a big change, right? But what would it mean for students and educators? That's what we're going to break down next. Let's talk about the potential impact on students, teachers, and college access. The first question we have to ask is, who would this affect the most? For K-12 students, federal programs provide funding to schools in low-income areas and ensure students receive equal access to education. Without federal oversight, states would have full control, which could lead to major differences in education quality from one state to another. For teachers, the federal government provides funding for teachers' training and national education standards. If those disappear, some schools might struggle to maintain quality teaching staff and resources. For college students, this is a big one. Right now, federal student loans and Pell Grants help millions afford education, including myself. If the Department of Education is dismantled, these programs could be moved to another agency. But what would it look like? Would funding stay the same, or could we see major cuts? For students like me who are working toward a career that requires a master's degree, this is a serious concern. Graduate school is expensive, and many of us rely on federal aid to continue our education. Without clear answers on how financial aid would be handled, this plan leaves uncertainty for students planning their futures. How this affects students with disabilities. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is a federal law that guarantees students with disabilities the support that they need in school, from individual education plans, or IEPs, to therapy and assistive technology. If federal government steps back and leaves everything to the states, there's a big risk that not all states would maintain the same level of services. Will states have the funding and commitment to provide the same level of accessibility in schools, or will students in some states lose essential services? As someone who has navigated life with a disability, I know firsthand how important these programs are, not just for education, but for building independence and preparing for the future. On top of that, many disability services in colleges, including accommodations for students with mobility challenges or communication disorders, are federally supported. If those protections are weakened, disabled students may face more barriers in higher education. The idea of states taking full control of education raises a lot of questions. Will states uphold IDEA protections, or will some roll them back? Will families have to fight harder to get services their children need? What happens if a child with a disability lives in a state that deprioritizes special education? For families who depend on these programs, this is not just a policy debate. This is a life-changing issue. Is this even possible? So we've talked about what this plan includes and who it affects, but there's a big question. Can a president actually eliminate the Department of Education? The short answer is it's not simple. Congress would have to approve shutting down the department, which would require a 60% supermajority of the Senate, even if Republicans control Congress. This would be a tough battle, as many lawmakers, even some conservatives, worry about what eliminating federal oversight would mean for education. Even if a department isn't fully abolished, a president still has the power to drastically reduce its budget and influence, which means that while the department may still exist, it could become much weaker under DT's leadership. So while the plan might not fully be realized, its impact could still be significant. Now let's look at both sides of the argument. Supporters say education should be controlled by local communities, not Washington, D.C. School choice empowers parents to choose the best education for their children. Cutting bureaucracy could redirect more money directly to classrooms. Critics argue federal oversight ensures education equity across all states. Students with disabilities, low income students, and marginalized communities could lose essential funding and protections. Eliminating national standards could create major disparities in education quality. Should the federal government step back from education, or is this role essential for ensuring fairness and quality for all students? This is a huge conversation, and it's one that affects millions of students, families, and educators. DT's plan to dismantle the Department of Education is ambitious and controversial, with a lot of unknowns on how it would work. For students like me who rely on financial aid and children with disabilities who depend on federally protected services, this is a policy that could have life-changing consequences. Whether you support or oppose it, one thing is certain: education will be a major issue in the next election. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this plan? Do you think education should be handled at the state level, or does federal oversight help protect the students? Send me a message on social media and let's keep the conversation going. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media for more discussions on the policies and issues that shape our lives. As my dear friend Jamie used to say, dreams and dedication are a powerful combination. Until next time, bye everyone.